Well, in my tenure, and we're in a cyclical business, right? And there are definitely good times, and there are some very challenging times in our business. And I would say we went through two or three cycles in my 32 years that we were here. As I mentioned before, I think those first years for me in the early 90s when I first came were extremely challenging, not only because we had the dynamics of moving from single store operators, entrepreneurs to a mentality of a complex, but when we did those mergers, we really weren't prepared from a capitalization standpoint to manage what was ahead of us. As Dad said, back in the old days, everybody kind of looks at their checkbook, and if they had enough to pay the bills at the end of the month, things were okay. But the dynamics of the industry about the time I came in, and you guys can speak to this, but in the earlier years, I think the manufacturer put all that inventory on your lot, and they really didn't charge you a lot to do that, and it could sit until you sold it, right?
Yeah.
And so there wasn't a need for bank financing a lot and outside financing because the manufacturer pretty much floated you whatever you need to cash flow the business. But about the time I came, we didn't have relationships with the banks because we hadn't made kind of ongoing sustained profits. And then when we merged the dealers, because there had been no profits, there wasn't a lot of equity in the business. And so as that floor planning became interest bearing, as it needed to get paid off on high interest rate credit lines with the manufacturer, it was important and incumbent on us to figure out how do we find relationships with the banks to provide some of the financing. And I remember Dad and I had multiple conversations. Well, why don't the banks like us and other things? And I'm like, well, you got to do two or three things. You got to have very consistent, ongoing financial reporting that you tell them the good and the bad. You've got to make sustained annual profits and retain those in the business. And there was a little bit of the mentality that, we don't like to pay taxes, so we, don't want to earn too much money. And you got to kind of have this relationship with them that is very open and transparent, and then the balance sheet has to be properly leveraged. And those things took a lot of time to seep through the organization because at the point I came, I was a CPA coming from industry and seeing all these balance sheet ratios and managing this. Everybody else in the organization was a salesperson, basically. And from a sales aspect, what do? You sell. But I think what we found out is as we continued to sell and sell new equipment, what happened is we loaded up on the used equipment. We didn't turn it fast enough, and a lot of cash ended up being on the lot in used equipment, and the values of those things over time depreciated and went down, and it caused a lot of stress in the organization. So we had to figure out how to navigate that through. And then besides that was the whole dealer-owned rental yard, Dory, that program that Case had, which was throw it on the balance sheet.
Right.
And, it made the problem worse. And probably no different than it was in 2011 or 12, or what we're facing now is the manufacturers got their thing to do. Their thing to do is to put the dealers on, give the dealers inventory, push that off of theirs. And, in those days, it was pushed off on our balance sheet in this rental yard that we couldn't rent enough. It was just a way for us to figure out how to retail it. In 2014, they were overproducing tractors and everything else, and the market went down 50%, and they're still shoving inventory down our throat. And now we're in that kind of slow down time again of, they continue to send us new inventory. We keep selling it, and the used kind of backs up a little bit. So those difficult times really helped, mold what we needed to do for the future as a complex to create good reporting, to create sustained profits, and then to create this kind of transparency. And we did that over probably a period of about 4 or 5 years, from about 92 to 96 or 7. And once we came out of the other side of that, and I think everybody in the organization realized that we couldn't continue to do what we did, Then we got all together from a mindset about how do we manage this as one inventory? How do we do
Sure.
cost analysis right on our trades?
Yeah.
There was just a lot of progress that was made there, but that was a very challenging time for our organization. That really, we had to kind of backstep and sidestep a lot of things till we worked through that. But
Yeah.
but we did.
The elimination of the redundancies of multiple individual dealerships, as Mike alluded to earlier, was critical. And then just figuring out those components of our business that were not run as efficiently and properly. And so we made those changes as well. And the two together created a lot of the dynamics that Mike's talking about. I think back in terms of the cyclical side of this business, which you have to be very aware of that if you're going to be successful, because you'll go out there and think that you have some good years and you think this is great, and then you make poor decisions that put you out of business in the future. But when I came into business in '77, I had come off the Birkey's business had come off, and the industry had come off about 4 years of excellent, tremendous business, successful business. And I remember when I sat down as an owner, along with 3 other guys that had just bought in, Dad said we had an off year, so to speak, in 1978. And Dad said, "Well, now this is more like what it's going to be like. This is real. That what we had was not really real. This is more real." And I can tell you that was the best year we had until 1990. So the '80s were a challenge, and it had a lot to do with the high interest rates. Like Mike alluded to, it affects you. If you have high inventories, it's going to kill you. And it was hard on every dealer, and certainly hard on us. But through all these other transitions that Mike spoke of, we merged out of the '80s, those high interest periods. And
we couldn't have done all this if it wouldn't have been for our stable base of employees.
yeah, oh yeah.
We had a great group of employees, and to do that, we decided to install a 401k plan. And we were rather generous in how we matched dollars to the employees. In fact, I think as of this point, there's over $50 million in that account that belongs to our employees. And when they retire, I just still get calls or in contact with people who just can't get over how much they accumulated over the years that were in that plan. And rightfully so, it didn't really cost us much if you really think about it. And the costs were all taken out there, and we could have made more margin if we didn't have a 401k plan.
Yeah.
By the same token, we could have lost some people.
Right. We had our success was centered around having great employees.
Yeah, that's one thing that I think as we have done things over the years, we've gone through these cycles, and there's a lot of other dealers that have removed a lot of employees from their employment. They've eliminated benefits like the 401k plan. They've eliminated vacation time. We as an organization always have seen our employees as probably the most valuable asset that we have, and certainly something that helps differentiate us from some of our competitors. And we have worked hard in those down cycles to maintain the engagement of our employees and to keep them fully employed and continue on with the benefits. And I think over the years that has served us well. We've had many employees that have worked 20, 30, 40, some 50 years at Birkey's. And it's great to be a part of an organization that puts stock in the employees. And I think we took another step in 21 as we were looking for some exit strategies for our owner group, to actually move the ownership of the company into an ESOP where now we're 100% employee owned. And certainly that will take some time to get some traction. We're seeing some initial out of the box benefits that with share values and some other things. But I think in the long run, Not only do we have that 401k that Dad was instrumental in setting up and the matches and those things, now we've got shares going to all of our employees on an annual basis that is going to further grow our employees' ability to work here in the long term and retire with a nice nest egg.
Yeah, the environment that we've created over the years, I think, for the employee has additionally given certain employees an opportunity to grow in terms of position change. As we added stores, we placed a lot of our top people in some of those stores to get them going. They'd been with the company, they'd shown great talents, and we recognize that by promoting them in. So it gave them some great opportunities that maybe a single outlet dealership doesn't provide those opportunities for individual growth. And so we were real proud of that. And we benefited as owners. It was a payback for us because we were able to start a good operation that understood the way we did business and implemented the policies that we had and helped to grow our business in those new locations. So it was a win-win for both us and the employees at that point.